Welcome back to the show, everybody, to Be the Trader. Today, I have a very special guest. If you haven't heard from him, you're going to hear today about Alex, aka TAGRtrades. He's actually been interviewed on Chat with Traders. So if you're very interested in learning about his background, because that has all been interviewed before, he's already been interviewed before on that. And I suggest you go to Chat with Traders and listen to those two episodes. In today's episode, we're really just going to dive into how you've been, Alex, and what your plans are moving forward, and just kind of get to know you. And you've been MIA, man. You've been MIA, so I really
yeah.
want to see how you've been.
Busy
So welcome to the show. Yeah,
Thank
no, I
you,
believe.
thank you.
So how have things been? I mean, the last time I've heard of your name was back in, when was that last Chat with Traders? It was like 2017 or?
So my first one was 17, and then I've done one 17, 18, and 19, like around April. So I don't know why that's our time frame, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then that last time you kind of like answered questions, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, that was a little different. So that was,
It was different.
it kind of threw me off, and I don't feel like it was as smooth as the other ones. If you're going to go back and listen, I listened to the first two because I like those ones a little better. But yeah.
Those first two are great. And for those who don't know, just to give you a quick an idea, Alex, and I'll let you dive into this if you'd like, but it is a long bias trader, focuses on penny stocks. And I say long bias because, I mean, number one, you don't hear about that often. It's mainly short sellers is what you hear. So you're the complete opposite of what normal people see. And it's very interesting that you're in that side of the table because I feel like that's a lot harder to be on. And so I'm happy to talk to you about that in just terms of your psychology and how you trade that way. But yeah, so for those who haven't heard of that, just make sure you listen to Chat with Traders, as he said, because it goes on a full background of where he started. But with that being said, let's start off where you've been at recently. What you've been focused on this past, I would say, since that last Chat with Traders.
So that came into the summer. So as you know, probably most people know, the summer slows down. So right before I talked to Aaron, it was just a hot beginning of 2019. Things were going crazy. Things were awesome. And then, May comes around, and as usual, things just slow. There's really nothing you can do about that. I took my biggest intraday drawdown in May, and it was painful. I learned a lot from that, which I guess is nice because I'd always lost money, when I wasn't consistent, and it really hurt. And this was the first time that I lost way more than I could ever imagine, like nauseating amount. I was able to bounce back after like 45 minutes of wanting to throw my computer out the screen or out the window. So that kind of felt like I'd gotten somewhere, which was weird, taking a big loss and realizing, okay, I can just stomach it, move on, is what it is, part of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me coming into after the summer. I wired down my account to about half the size because I took that big loss and I just wanted to get myself back to where I was rebalancing. And then once I got there at the end of the year, I said, you know what, I've taken a big loss. What's there to be scared about? It's already happened. Let's see what I can do. And I've been able to comfortably push more size after that loss, which is weird. But I guess in retrospect, it was a good thing. So I've taken some pretty big losses again since then, but I've also had some bigger wins than average. So I guess just getting comfortable with the average loss being bigger and the average gain being bigger as well. It comes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work that way. So yeah, that's kind of what the year's been doing. And I've also been trying to adapt to trading larger caps.
That's right.
I'm not great at the ones that are low beta that move, like 0.5% a day. I'm trying to look for the ones that still move high percentage, but it's hard for me because you have to put so much more capital in the market versus penny stocks / small caps. And with a tweet, you never know when you're going to get a Trump tweet or any tweet. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, a lot of money in the market, and one tweet can just smack you. So it's been challenging, but it's been good. Trying to grow. So yeah.
So what happened in May when that big hit? Like you said, you learned a valuable lesson. What was that lesson, and what happened? If you could share that.
Yeah. So okay, I guess there's two parts, and I've thought about this. I'm starting to kind of work on my end of year, changes. One thing was I took a huge position in a liquid stock because it had been working in the front end of the year, and liquidity went away. And I chumped myself out trying to battle the stock and trying to get out by, selling on pops, or basically I was fighting it because there was no liquidity to get out of. that was when I was being really stingy for some reason about commissions, which, I mean, you look back on it, you're like, why didn't I just take this, maybe $180, $200 commission loss versus the thousands of dollars of loss?
Right.
But since then, a great thing's happened for guys like me that are long bias traders. They got rid of commissions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, like, let's say, for example, I had just a really big, 40 or 50,000 share position of something, and there was nobody to get out of. I was freaking scared, and I was wanting to sell 10,000, 20,000 share chunks when there was nobody there. Now I can have 3 different order screens up with 500, 750, 1,000 share blocks, and just try to sneak out like slowly. Just maybe instead of taking like 3 orders to get out, take like 70 orders to get out because it doesn't cost me anything.
Oh, true.
So it was just like a weird stroke of luck, I guess, that happened where I was chumped out trying to save money on commissions, which is always a stupid thing to do once you look back on it. And in the time, you're like, I don't want to lose an extra $180 in commissions. And then you're like, wow, okay, I lost 40 times that,
Yeah.
whatever. So I guess, learning just to like start taking my medicine quicker if I'm going to take big positions.
So
and that's in small caps.
That was small cap. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to ask you.
Large is different because cap. I mean, I wouldn't even move the needle, but 4 cents on something big, if it's a high beta stock. But small cap, you can move it 5 to 10%, and whenever you got a substantial amount of portfolio in there for a quick trade, that hurts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so whenever you said it was a trade that was normally working in the beginning and then it became liquid, can you give me an idea of what you mean? Like you just ignored that liquidity, or you were just?
I guess I didn't ignore the liquidity. I was bold and courageous in my entry, thinking, okay, it's worked the last, 15 out of 20 times. This is probably going to work, which is fair. I mean, I look back at the trade; It was a fair trade. Maybe I took too much size. I think my problem was the exit. I was digging my feet in at the wrong period of time. If I dug my feet in January or February, it'd been fine. Digging my feet in May, when there's not as many chasers, when the risk wasn't risk on, I think I have to think differently than you got. Maybe the shorters, that's their time to thrive, is May through September when things pop and drop. Whereas I needed to get out quicker, and I didn't, and I paid for it big time. And I just remember I thought I was so mad, but then I just dug into it, figured out what I did wrong, and said, okay, look, I made the mistake. I could lose 3 nights of sleep over, or I could just forget about it. Not forget about it. Don't ever forget about that, but learn from it and move on. And so, yeah, I think I just took too much size, didn't get out when I needed to get out.
When you said you had like 45 minutes of that like anxiety that came over you, that moment where you're like, man, I can't believe this happened. And then you got over it. Did you mean literally like you got over it and then you made that back that same day? Because that's what it sounded like.
No.
What do you mean?
It took me maybe a week and a half to dig out of that hole, which it was also, if we go back to if it was like January, February, I probably could have dug out of the hole in a day or two, but it just wasn't my time to make it back in a day or two. So I had to just say, okay, I could think I'm in a drawdown, or I can just say I'm at 0 starting tomorrow, and we just go from here and we see what happens. Like I just tried to forget the number. I mean,
What do you do to do that? Just curious. Because it's a lot easier said than done when you take a big hit, and I might wipe out a lot of people. It could wipe out, 3 weeks, a month. It could wipe out months of trading, depending on what, how you're trading. Right. So how do you normally start at 0? Like, how do you do that for yourself? Is there any tricks like you play games with yourself or anything like that?
I mean, like if you asked me that like in 16 and 17, whenever I was like really trying to build up my account, and that was detrimental. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say and say, this is what you guys should do, because I've also had like 2 or 3 solid years stretch, mostly good months, mostly good weeks. And I had a really bad trade that ruined 1 month. And then for me personally, I just go look back at my results and say, look, I'm still right 60% of the time. Like, there's going to be that 40% I'm wrong, and there's going to be that 5 to 10% that I'm like really wrong. And it just is what it is. I can't fist pump when I have a good trade and get over it, because I have to get over the good trades just as fast as I have to get over the bad trades. That was probably one of my biggest things I had to improve in 17 and 18, was I started having big trades, and I'd say, hell yeah, I just, I had a great day or a great trade, and then I would just take my foot off the pedal for the rest of the day or week or month, and I gave up times that I needed to make those gains. Whereas at the same time, I took losses and I needed to. So it's about getting over the excitement and the sadness quickly. It's just what you have to do. I don't know if I have any tricks. I just realized that my edge is taking the next trade, and if I miss the next trade, then I throw off everything. So
No, that makes perfect sense. I'm glad you said that because you're right. When you win, that excitement can actually ruin your future success too, right? Because you could take too big a size or something.
yeah, I was probably like I think I have my goals. I'm working my goals for next year, and I want to say one of my goals for 18. It wasn't 19, but was like, look, dude, if you have a good day, continue to press. Like it's probably your time. Like there's days that I'm going to sit here for 3 days and not put on a trade, and it sucks. But if I'm hot and the market's hot, you got to keep pressing. You can't give yourself a high five. You just got to pretend like, okay, I'm back at zero. Let's go. Like even within the day, I'm back at zero. You can't. I also don't like to think about like I'm risking my gains on the day. No,
Right.
that's money in my pocket. Like it's not the house's money. It's not like if I give that up, that's my money. So I just got to say, sweet trade. Yeah, awesome. All right, what's next? I mean, that's just kind of how you have to go.
So how do you celebrate then? Just curious, like, because I get that and I agree with you 100%. So I just don't, people are probably like, well, I mean, how am I supposed to celebrate? So how do you celebrate your own, like, what's success for you now?
Okay, so that's a good question. I haven't thought of that. I guess it's changed drastically from okay, I need this money for something per se, like outside of the market. Like, oh yeah, okay, this gets me this. But now it's like, I guess my goals are bigger and like more out, like 5 to 10 years out, and so it's
Nice.
less exciting. Or no, okay, it's not less exciting. But I look at goals more like a monthly to yearly thing versus a daily and weekly, because I can have a big day on a Monday and then like the rest of the week it sucks. So it's like, what am I? I'm not celebrating that week a good trade. So I have milestones. Like I still know what my biggest day ever is. So every time I surpass that, I have a little celebration, and it's after the market's closed. Like I'm not like celebrating right then and there. I'm not saying, oh, I hit my goal by 11 a.m. I'm done. Like, no, I'm going to work till the market closes, and then I'll celebrate by, maybe making a nice steak, or I got kids now, so it's not like I'm going to pop bottles or anything like that.
Right.
But, I'll little pleasures, a nice bottle of wine or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, it's a long game now. So one day is not that exciting. I think at the end of the year, when I hit a good goal, that's exciting because that means I had a whole entire good year of just making things work. So, yeah, I guess I'm not so excited about the day to day. I'm more excited about the bigger picture.
Gotcha. So you're more focused on maybe a monthly to quarterly basis, maybe.
Yeah, I would say monthly to me is pretty good. Like you have enough time within a month to make something try to happen. Like a week, you can't get down on yourself if you don't have a good week, because sometimes there's just not something there. But within a month, you should have the opportunity to find a couple good trades. And then, a quarter, then, you really should have, it doesn't matter what the market's when you should find something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting how it's cool to see, and if you haven't listened to those episodes, because your perspective is changing over time. And it's really unique to see that because you're growing as a person, as a trader, as a business person, in so many aspects, as a father. You're seeing things differently to where it's a long range now, like long goals. Like I'm trying to do this now, so 10 years from now I can get to Y. So I love how you're seeing that, because it also kind of alleviates the day to day. You're not so stressed as the day to day.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've had the same problem, and I've seen people write about it on Twitter or whatever that are traders that have been consistent for a few years. Like at some point, it's like, what are you doing this for exactly? Like, is it for just the money? Because if it is, then you're going to get burnt out at some point. And I've faced that at points over this last year or two, where it's like, I mean, I'm not a big spender. So it's like I make a big amount of, let's say I have a big day. It's like I'm going out and blowing that. It's like, so it's just going into the bank. Like, what am I doing this for? And then it's like, okay, I'm doing this so that 10 years from now, maybe I can do something that most, they say that entrepreneurship is doing something now, so you don't have to. I can't remember what that is, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
It's like, look, I'm going to press now while it's hot, and then that's because at some point it might not be, and I might, I don't know. Just let's be real.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it stays hot.
You and me both. Every year, I'm like, is it going to be another good year? I don't. You never know. So I guess that's one of the nice things too. It keeps the fire under you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned something just now about how you had a moment of burnout, or a moment of just questioning, why am I doing this? And so, like, why do you feel that happened? Because I feel like you started trading, right? Because you saw that this is an easy, I mean, at least for me, like this is a way that you can make money, right? And then I think along that way, you just kind of fell in love with it.
Mm.
And then so after that, then you had this, I'm surprised that you said you had this moment where it was kind of, why am I doing this? So what happened? Like, I want to know, like, was it a bad couple of days? Were you stressed? Was it a great couple of days? And you were just, was happiness, what was happening?
Yeah, I don't know. The front end is like the first few years is really exciting because it's like you don't know what the hell's going on, right? Like I remember working all the time. Basically, like I was studying flashcards of charts, and like it was, every day was extremely difficult, and like every time you just get out, like finish the day in the green, it was just so exciting. And then it gets expect more and more and more and more and more and more and more from yourself, and you're like, dude, why? Like putting a lot of pressure on when things are good. And it got to be like, well, why am I continuing to put more pressure on myself when in theory it's not necessary? But everyone wants to say, hustle harder, grind harder, grind harder. And it's like, what, like, why? It's like this existential question, like, why are you working harder and harder and harder? And then I had to realize, well, it's not necessarily for more money per se, but it's like I like achieving goals, like I think most people do, and it just came down to thinking about trading. Trading is the thing that I love right now, and let's be real. 10 years from now, maybe there's something else that I love. Like I'm realistic. I don't know, but right now it consumes me and I enjoy it. So I had to re-remember that. That's why I was doing it. It wasn't just, it got to be for a while, it was just all about the money. And then now it's like, there's the freedom, there's the ability to work from home. It's nice.
No, I get that. And talk about freedom. So you've been traveling a lot here recently, right?
Yeah. Yes, we have. That's sort of one of the perks, nothing like outrageous or whatever, but yeah, we have been able to pick up. And I'm thinking about for like 2020 on, we've been doing a lot of like the leave for a long weekends, leaving Thursday and Friday, but it makes it so hard to come back on a Monday when you miss that Thursday and Friday actions. I feel like my flow with things have been off. But yeah, we've been able to do some trips lately, which is nice. Yeah.
And you say sometimes you fell off, so you don't like to be focused on the market at all, like whenever you're traveling, because there's that idea, at least I have, where like you're doing well trading, now I can go travel and work from anywhere. Like, do you kind of have that kind of persona, if you would say? Like,
so every time we went on a vacation from 2013 to 18, I worked while we were there. I'd take my laptop, I'd usually take some HDMI cords, I'd pull every TV that was in the rental, and I'd try to work. And so yeah, I did that. And I've had some really bad days doing that, which makes me regret, like kind of running the vacation. Specifically, I had a friend's wedding, and I was trading at a friend's house before, and I just screwed up on a Friday, and then it kind of ruins the whole weekend. But then I've also had it to where I've gone and had really good days on vacation, and it makes it a lot better. So this year we went on a few family vacations that we were gone for a couple of weeks, and I decided no. And then I also had a couple where I would trade for the first hour, and that was it. And I would just trade for the first hour. I wouldn't even check my phone and try to come do it again. And it's hard for me to do that. It's hard for me to stay in the flow if I'm not like there all day. So I guess it's a work in progress for me. So I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, I'm gonna try to do a little more of that here probably the next couple of years. But it's not like I'm taking my laptop on the beach and crushing it. I would still try to make a pretty legit setup where don't bother me, dad's working, like give me my time, and when I'm done I go. But yeah, that's a work in progress.
So what's your like? I get that. I think routine's important. I'm sure you have one. I'm sure you have a routine because everyone, professional basketball players, golf, anything, you have a routine when you find what works for you. And so I'm curious, like, what is your routine to get you in that mojo? As you were saying, like, you like to be in that flow state. Mm-hmm. Like, what gets you in that flow state?
So the main thing for me really is being behind my screens from open to close. Like that's you can prepare at night and whatnot or in the morning, but like for me, for the way I trade best when I know almost everything about the stocks that are in play. I don't need to know about. I used to do a lot, and this is one of the questions I get a lot from my earlier interviews with TAGRtrades, which I used to use FinViz, however you want to use it. I'd scan for daily charts, and I'd go from there. But now what I've really found is that me just being in the zone, seeing all the level twos, all the order books throughout the day, seeing where the levels are, charting them off, support and resistance, basic stuff, but knowing that and seeing it, because I can go back at the end of a day and pull up charts and see it on a chart, but it's not the same as seeing it in person. Seeing that level get tested many times.
Yeah, it's way
seeing
different.
the size come in, seeing, where people are chasing, what levels like have been tested like six. I mean, you can see it on a chart, and and some people are great at that. And it's just not for, if I'm going to put my money in the market, I got to have that confidence. So for me, it's about being there open to close 95% of the time. And taking notes and updating my watch lists and taking names out, adding names in, being prepared for potential sympathy plays, being prepared for knowing everything that's going on. And then when the market closes, I used to do a lot of aftermarket stuff, but now I mainly shift it to the morning now, because for me, if it's fresh in my head that day, if I wake up the next day, I do my charting, look at the momentum, look at the news, and I know that moment where everything is, and the day opens, and I just feel so much more relaxed and confident.
You feel like you're part of the market. If you will,
like
right?
I say it to some people, I'm like, I feel like I have my finger on the pulse of the market when I'm watching all of it. And it's like, it's true. When I take my finger off and I'm gone, it's like I can look at a chart and I can see, okay, here's support and resistance, right? But like, I don't trust it. I don't believe it. I don't know it. I'm not confident in it. So my preparation, I guess you could say now, is just literally trying to see it all. Like I don't, but I try to.
Isn't it interesting that, did you have the perception when you first started trading that here's a job that I can go to, maybe work an hour a day and I'm done? And now you're like all day,
I started doing it toward, like, when I started trading with swing trading, and I just researched the hell out of like small cap, like biotech companies, something like that. Like, and that to me was what I thought it was. I thought it was like researching after and then making decisions. I mean, it can be, but for me, it's like, no, like I gotta be pretty plugged in all the time. And I gotta know things when they come out, like right then. Like I can't know things 5 seconds later, because as a day trader, that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
So just seeing everything happen. So yeah.
And so just to give some perspective, because you hit on something earlier, there's a difference between seeing the chart and then seeing it actually develop that chart. Mm-hmm. And just to give some people some perspective, and I want you to take this, is more of, can you explain why that's different so others can understand that? Because I get where you're coming from, but I think it'll be better coming from you.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just take say a $5 stock, for example.
Right.
And I'm not even going to throw a symbol out there, but, you can look at a chart and you can see that, level 5 has been tested like 3 times, it fails. And you see, a higher low maybe, or a lower low, or you just see all these, it's information. It's really good information. It really is. If you're not able to see it live, but if you can see it live and you can see, a level's tested and a huge offer comes in, or somebody pulls in a bid and then they get hit a little bit and they drop the bid. Well, is it even like, there's so much more data to be collected watching something live, seeing how fast something tests it. Because a 1 minute candle or 5 minute candle is great, but like, there's still a lot of time within that candle to see what's going on. Like, are people dropping huge offers? Are, what's moving it? And then at the same time, seeing how is it correlating to the market in real time? Like, is the market fading, but this stock is going strong when the market's fading? I mean, you could do like a cross reference and stuff like that, but right. I mean, you see it in real time and it's like, okay, the market's fading. This is still trying to break out. Well, if tomorrow the market's breaking out, what am I going to do? I'm going to look for that $5 stock and see if we can break that level. And, it might not work, and it doesn't 40% of the time. But
it sounds like it helps you with your conviction, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like if I'm going to put size,
like you can go bigger size because you've seen it set up.
100%, 100%. I can look at a chart and I can take a trade on just off a chart, but I'm not going full size. Or it's not my A+ if I don't know. And I want to know what's the news, like what's the flow, what's the short percent. And I can't, I could obviously do that by referencing, but when you're in there and you're seeing, what news is making stocks move and what news is making stocks fade, it's positive news making stocks fade. Well, you got to know, you got to see that. You've got to like feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keep going to feel. And it's so interesting you say that, because the longer I started trading, the more I started to see that all stocks are different. Like they're all and they all feel different. And it's so weird when you say that, because it might not make sense to some people, but like if the more you look at charts, the more you start to get a feel of how this stock acts. Yeah. And so if you just look at the screen, just look at the chart, then you can read it. Don't get me wrong. You can trade off that. Absolutely. But if you watch it and you learn its behavior, it changes your conviction, it changes the size you're going to take, it changes everything. Like, ooh, does this have a lot of fake outs? Like it changes everything for you. So I love that you point that out multiple times, because feeling is very important. I think it's a huge thing that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, totally. And like I know I mentioned before, like the size of the float or the short or like things things don't matter until they matter. So like all of a sudden you may notice like every stock that has a 30% short interest starts to get targeted. Like one goes, two goes, and you go, oh shit, there's something going on here. Okay, let's start pulling up all the ones that have the high short interest. This matters, but it might work for like 3 days and then nobody cares about it. But you don't want to be the guy who's still trying to make something happen when nobody cares about it anymore. Like, but you only know that if you're just can feel it start to fade off, or that's because that's my typical bread and butter. It's like sympathy plays. Like if one thing's starting to work, all right, well, how are we gonna, what else can we start going after? And it hasn't been a great year for that this year, but I guarantee it probably will sooner than later. So it'll matter.
Do you find it's interesting? You said something about you'll like to watch it with the overall market. But in small cap land, you hear a lot of the opposite where they don't really follow. But for you, it seems like that's what you like to see. Like
it just adds confidence. Yes, if a stock's going strong against the market and it's still going strong, I'm not going to not trade it. But if the next day their chart's still really strong and the market's behaving, then it's probably going to have a super high probability of working. Like it's just going to increase the probability that it's going to work that day. And that gives me the confidence to go big. And it doesn't mean I won't take a trade, but like if it's just like lining up more things to make the conviction there.
That makes sense. And so now I'm very curious because you mentioned at the very beginning of the show about you're writing down your goals down. So what do goals look like for you now in terms of trading, right? Like, number one, it's kind of a two-part question. Number one, what do the goals look like for you now for 2020 for trading? But also, what has been I'll ask the second question afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay. So my goals this year are I just have one overall number that I'd like to hit. Okay. I'll work hard till I get there. I've hit mine overall. So I set 3 goals. I learned this from my first company that I worked at a school. I said, you got to hit a certain number you got to hit to pay the bills, get the bottom line, be financially responsible. A second goal, which would be really nice, realistic. And then you have one that's what we always call like the stretch goal. Like I'm going to have to bust my ass. Things are going to have to fall into place for it to work. I can't set a number and the market just doesn't give, and I can't be mad at myself. But if every stars align, I have a number that I want to hit. And then I also have a number that I'd like to break my intraday record, intraday record. That's the only 2 goals I have number wise. Because I think I feel confident that, again, watching if I have my pulse, finger on the pulse and everything lines up, I should be able to have my biggest day. Those are the 2. And then last year, I still haven't finished my goals. So for last year, I really wanted to say I worked harder and smarter, because I've always been like, try to do one or the other. Like I want to work harder, I want to work smarter. If I can do both, what kind of magic can happen? And it's been hard because I had another kid this year. So the harder part was challenging, but I think I can honestly say at the end of the year, I think I worked harder and smarter than I have. So if you can do that, then usually I have good results.
And so what is your biggest, I would say, what has been your biggest challenge this year in terms of trading? Like, is it like a certain strategy you're learning? Is it a certain mistake that you're still trying to get over? Like, what's your biggest challenge right now?
Yes, my thing would still be sizing, and because I trade small cap stocks, so liquidity is a huge issue. I mean, it isn't until it is, and when it is, it's an issue. So trying to get better at that. I mean, my
Explain that. What do you mean by sizing? Because a lot of people might be trading real small, and then when they get there, they may not really know what you mean. So can you explain that little transition?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, throwing out just fake numbers.
Random numbers. That's fine.
So let's say you're used to trading 1,000 or 2,000 shares on a $1 stock. That's respectable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yep. But when everything lines up and you want to take 50 or 60,000 shares because everything lines up, and the bid, you only have maybe 5,000 shares showing, you got to have a lot of confidence that you're going to be able to sell, because you can't just press the sell button and you might be able to do it with 1,000, 2,000 shares. There's always gonna be something there, but there's not always going to be 50,000 share buyer behind you, and you can move the stock 20 cents, which is, depending on how much you have, we're talking lots of money.
Yep.
So pennies matter when you're trading. things under $5, every penny matters. And that's the way I run my trading, my business is every penny matters. So it's like, how can I get sharper on saving those 3 pennies? Or,
Yep.
You have to sell when you can sell. Like, that's the thing. Like, you've got to, if you're in a breakout and you've got 50,000 shares, you can't say, whoop-de-doo, let's, see how far we can go this. No, you've got to take that liquidity while it's there. Because if you don't, then your shot's gone. Like size scaling out, when to add, not adding to losers when you have a big size, because that will just wreck you. There's just a lot to go with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you start, doubling your size and then doubling, at some point it matters.
That makes sense. Because then, when the bid shows 5,000 and you have 50,000 shares, you better have a lot of confidence, my man.
Yeah, you gotta have a plan. Like, you gotta have a plan. You can't take that and then say, okay, what am I going to do? It's like, no, you have to have a plan of how you're going to get out. Are you going to start selling off chunks on the ask? Are you going to, how? Yeah, there's a lot to go into it. So it's making. Is there
a sorry for cutting you off there.
Oh, good.
Is there a focus? Like, I know you were looking at big caps, and that's something you wanted to look at. Is that something that you're still going to focus on in 2020? And if so, have you seen an improvement already for yourself? Because I remember last time you gave an update, you were like, I'm just not feeling it. And so I'm curious on where you're at now with big caps.
Yeah, so being more selective on what big caps I'm going to be focusing on. Instead of looking at the whole, basically a small caps, look at the whole world of small caps. I don't care what it is. Anything that's has a float under, let's say, 20 million, that it's of interest to me. I don't care. I don't care anything about it. But with large caps, I have to be a little bit more particular of like maybe building a name of like a list of 20 names that I get comfortable with. And those are the ones that are my babies. Going back to the feel, like I got to know how they feel. I got to know how they react, because I can't just pull up a large cap stock because there's just so much more, not so much more to it, but it's just a whole different ball game, and they have more intricacies, and there's a way more wide array of how they trade and who's trading them, and are they on NASDAQ, are they on NYSE, do they options expiration come? There's just a lot that has to go into play. Like, are there people hedging with options, and yeah, it's different.
It's different. Yeah. It's like,
it's not overwhelming. It's like you can't do it, but it's like, if you want to size up and you want to have the confidence, you have to be able to put so much together to be able to take that trade. I could throw, I could go full margin on anything, an Apple and whatever. Like, I'm not going to move the stock. I can get out. That's the beauty of it. But it's like, what's your edge going to be? And you've got to know a lot. And yeah, so it's getting more. I'm noticing I'm trading the same few names very well. And I have some names, like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Tesla. I suck at trading Tesla.
Yeah.
And I suck at it. And so it's like, like, I got to be real. Like, yeah, as a long bias guy, I should have seen this. I should have played it better. But it's like, I don't play it well. So let's just keep a note of that and figure out names that I do trade well. And it's like, when I remember I talked with Aaron the first few times, it's like, I just know I'm not good at buying dips in small caps. So instead of trying to spend a lot of time to get better at it, how about I spend time getting really, really good at a couple of things that I'm already good at and just maximize that. So that's kind of my goal for next year.
So last question, because I don't want to have you on for too long, is for listeners out there, what was the most reoccurring challenge that constantly came up when you were coming? Maybe not right now, right? Maybe in 2016, 17, that constantly was hitting you and saying, come on, Alex, figure it out. Like, you got to get this, like, you got to learn this lesson. Here's the lesson. And it kept hitting you. What was that for you, and how did you overcome it?
Discipline. It was just simply discipline. It was doing 99 things great and then having one just absolutely terrible thing where I let every single rule go out the window. Just would wreck me, and it's not just in trading. It's also my morning process or different processes, just being disciplined and figure out what works and do it every single day, and don't let anything break that. And if something's going to break it, then you're just going to have to size down because you're not ready for it. Or it was just like, I really had a discipline problem, and I had it probably my whole life, and trading brought it out because it mattered. It's just putting in the hard work and doing the hard thing. And
so you say just get discipline and just getting over it by just doing it. Like just
Yeah,
making sure that you do it.
figuring out what works, because I can't tell you what works. I can tell you what works for me, but it probably won't work for you. It's like really it's like digging deep and figuring out like what works for me, understanding why, accepting it, and doing it. It's like I can read somebody's list of like their top 10 things that made them successful, and it probably wouldn't translate to me. And I'd try really hard to make it work, and I wouldn't. But once I figured out what works for me, creating a process. I mean, I'm very process driven, and I like to write things down. So it's like I like to see it and just read it and do it and do it and do it and do it until now I don't even have to read it anymore. You just do it. And yeah, I wish I did it earlier.
Like now it's a machine.
Yeah, exactly. So just and not falling off. And if you fall off the bandwagon, which sounds bad, but
yeah, not what you mean.
It's like, I think even they say like you're going to fall off, just make it less worse of a fall off than last time and get back on the train faster. So if you can do that every single time, forgive yourself. You fall off quicker and get back on quicker, and it's just a lot less painful. And once you can do that and you start trusting yourself, magic can happen. Doesn't mean it will happen, but magic can happen. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And if anything, I just want to add to that is just forgive yourself, because if you forgive yourself from that mistake, then you can move forward and keep going. But if you don't forgive yourself, what are you going to do? You're going to revenge trade. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get aggravated at yourself and say, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. And then you're going to continue that cycle.
Right. If you know what works and something goes, like, let's say I have a trade that I know works, like that one in May, and I lost. Well, I have to forgive myself because I did what I was supposed to do. I made a mistake on the exit, but it was, but it was still a worthy trade. And you just got to know, that's going to happen. Like, you can't sulk on it. It's not going to get you anywhere. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Alex, look, man, I appreciate you so much coming to the show today and spending some time with me and the listeners. If anything, I would love to, stay in contact with you, because it's been a pleasure. And again, thank you for being here, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.